This 66-year-old woman told the 999 operator that she was going to stab her husband in the heart, but he doesn't have one. Whilst she was on the phone to emergency services, you will not believe what she did next. Before we get into today's story, if you're a fan of true crime in half the time, make sure you subscribe to my channel. This is a true story about Penelope Jackson, who is a 66-year-old woman from Somerset, United Kingdom. On February 13th, 2021, Penelope and her husband David Jackson were at home and they were about to eat lunch. It was lockdown in the United Kingdom, meaning nobody could really leave their house because of the COVID pandemic, and they were forced to be stuck in the house together, and they were just getting ready to eat some lunch. Penelope and David thought it would be a good idea to get onto a Zoom call to get on the call with their daughter and their son-in-law, Isabella and Tom. It was their birthday and they couldn't really go and see them in person due to the pandemic, so the best next thing they could do was get on a Zoom call, have lunch over the camera with obviously their daughter and their son-in-law. Now, before they got on the Zoom call, they were actually having an argument, both Penelope and David, about the food they were about to eat. They were having a massive argument, but they got on the Zoom call and they kind of just shut off so the daughter and the son-in-law wouldn't really kind of pick up on any tensions. They just kind of played it easy on camera and just sat down for a nice lunch. Now, it's alleged that David Jackson was a very violent, physical abusing man. Penelope was his third wife, and supposedly David was always horrible to Penelope. He would always belittle her, he would always abuse her, some apparently even physically attack her. It seems like he just wasn't a nice man. And you know, previously before the phone call, he was also being horrible to her again, like he supposedly was every single day, really bringing Penelope down every single day throughout her marriage, and just really being nasty towards Penelope. In fact, David's actual brother said that David would push Penelope to a limit intentionally to wind her up, belittle her, bully her, and be mean to her. And his own brother said these words about him. David's brother also said that David has a huge drinking problem, and that was one of the main reasons they stopped talking as brothers, because he was addicted to drinking and he had a massive drinking problem. And when he drank, he would always be vile to anybody, sober or drunk supposedly. He would just be horrible, but the drink supposedly made it a lot worse for him because he was always intoxicated basically. Also, David's brother said that he can recall that one day David actually tried strangling his own mother, Lillian. That's from his brother, and that's a bit about David. Yeah, he just doesn't seem like a very nice person. So they continued with this phone call, and when the phone call ended, Penelope decided that she had had enough. The previous argument before the phone call, she was biting her tongue over just for the phone call, and when the phone call ended, she decided she was going to take back control. She was fed up of being bullied, fed up of being picked on, fed up of being abused. She wanted to take back control, and she was very angry at David. They were both in this house. They just had a phone call with obviously their stepson and their daughter. She had to kind of act normal, but inside she was fuming. They just had an argument about food, and again, and although it was minuscule, it was just one thing after another, and apparently this was the tipping edge for her that made her do something which is very shocking. Now, the food they were eating was Bubble and Squeak. If you're not sure what that is, it's basically where you take your Sunday lunch, mix it up. If you guys don't know what it is, you can Google it. It just basically looks like this, and this was what they was arguing about. This was brought from their daughter, and no one really knows specifically what they had argued about the food, whether it wasn't very nice or they didn't want it, but it seems that David said something to obviously Penelope to make her wind up, to make her wound up, to make her really angry, whether it was belittling or being mean or bullying her again, whatever it was. Penelope had enough, and she was about to commit the biggest crime ever. So Penelope supposedly got a kitchen knife and went up to David and said, "I'm gonna stab you." David responded to him, because he's so used to the controlling behavior, he was like, "You're not gonna do that, you wouldn't stab me," trying to control her again supposedly. But Penelope had had enough at this point. She had been sick and she was tired and had enough of being bullied and controlled, so she stabbed him. She went on and stabbed her own husband, but after she stabbed him, she did something very surprising. Now, once you stab somebody, well, once anybody stabs somebody normally, they try and cover it up. They try and actually, you know, get rid of the evidence. They don't want to be caught for stabbing somebody. Penelope, however, had something different in mind. She stabbed him and she reacted in a very different way. People who commit crimes normally don't ring the police on themselves. However, Penelope rang the emergency services and told them she just stabbed her husband. This is a voice note from that phone call.
You with him now?
Well,
I might just go and stab him again. But
Alright, do not stab him again.
why?
Alright, madam.
I don't.
How many times have you stabbed him?
3 times.
3 times, okay.
Once I thought I'd get his heart. Well, he hasn't got one. And then twice in the abdomen.
As you can hear, she was confident in what she was saying. She's had enough of being bullied, abused, mentally controlled. She'd had enough. She couldn't handle it no more. It seems like she was pushed to a limit so much by this abusive husband, and she stabbed him. She just blatantly admitted straight to the emergency services that she stabbed him. She didn't care to tell him anything. She just went through it and told him that she just stabbed her husband once, just before she phoned the emergency services. Now, not only did she stab him once, while she was on the phone to emergency services, the emergency services were telling her to put the knife down and not do anything else. But she had something different in mind. She actually stabbed him again while she was on the phone to the emergency services. She actually was heard saying, "Why can't I do this? I'm gonna do it." And the husband was also heard screaming in the background, which I won't play that bit because it's quite disturbing. But he was heard in the background on this phone call of screaming after she just stabbed him again whilst on the phone to emergency services. And when she stabbed him, she also told the police, while she was doing it, "I'm stabbing him," like straight up, brutally honest. Like, this is the most craziest thing ever for like a murderer to just tell the police as she's currently doing it what she's doing. Now, while she was on the phone to the police and emergency services, they already sent units to the house. They were already on the way to Penelope's house because obviously she's not lying at this point. She's like, the police can hear the person, David's being stabbed in the background. She's being honest, so they have to send emergency services out to, even if it was a force. So they sent them out. And when they got to a house, they knocked on the door and they asked, Penelope answered the door, and she didn't seem sad. She actually seemed very, very, like, almost like relieved. Like, she was relieved that the police were there. She was actually relieved that the police had turned up and she was going to get arrested. One of the first things she says was, I admit it all. I just stabbed him. He's in there, he's dying. Hopefully he's dying more. One of the things she actually said, like I said, was she said to the police, hopefully he's in there bleeding to death and I hope I could have stabbed him more. Crazy.
Hey madam, do you want to just step outside for me a minute? Thank you.
What's this one? He's on the kitchen floor.
Okay.
Right, get the ambulance in, pronto. We need
Oh,
CPR.
don't. No, please don't.
Yeah, we need the
I should
ambulance
have
in.
stabbed him a bit more.
The police kept talking to her and all she kept insisting on was that she was hoping that he was bleeding out. That's what she kept saying. She just hopes that he was bleeding and bleeding out. And yeah, so the police obviously arrested her whilst they were there. There is actually footage as well, which I'll play also in a minute, of them arresting her, putting her into the car, and while she's getting into the car, she's just constantly saying, I'm guilty, arrest me, put me down, I'm a murderer, I hope he's dead, I should have stabbed him more. Play the clip.
I know what I've done.
All right.
And I know why I've done it. And if I haven't done it properly, I'm really annoyed.
So once they obviously got to the police station, Penelope admitted everything. There was enough evidence from her own sayings, and obviously David was pronounced dead after he was stabbed to death. And Penelope admitted everything. She was arrested, and she didn't deny anything. She said thank you almost for arresting me. She was thankful. She was thankful to get away from this controlling relationship. It seemed like she was abused for a very long time, and it seemed like the only way out for her was to commit murder, and that's what it seems to be. Penelope was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 18 years. For in the United Kingdom, that's quite a low for some people. If you murder your husband, some people get a lot longer than that. But yeah, she's got minimum 18 years life imprisonment. Now, when I found out about this story and started looking into it, it seems like there's a lot of people in the world who feel sorry for Penelope for all the torture she went through. They actually feel sorry for her because she was pushed so far to her limits that she thought the only way out was to kill and commit murder. She rathered spend life in jail than be near this man anymore. That is how far he abused her and mentally tormented her. She would rather be in prison for the rest of her life and never see anyone ever again than be one more breath with this man. So people felt really sorry for her. Obviously, regardless, she's still a murderer and she still needs punishments. And a lot of people are saying that she is sick for doing this. there's two sides to these opinions, and let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. But yeah guys, this was the true story of Penelope Jackson. If you want to see more true crime stories in half the time, make sure you subscribe to my channel, turn on post notifications, and I'll bring you videos every single day with the craziest, deepest, mysterious true crime stories.